Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to r/ProRevenge, where you'll hear super satisfying stories about people getting what they deserve. Guys, I hope you're having a great day today, and in this episode, you'll hear 2 insane revenge stories. So buckle up, grab some snacks, grab a drink, because we're diving in. Oh, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for future stories. So, I was in a relationship for 9 years with a girl I met in college. We broke up on the cusp of my 29th birthday. While breakups and divorce are never trauma-free, this one was as close to that as I can get. There were no fights, minimal drama, and I moved away to a new city to get a fresh start and be closer to my dad and half-sisters. My plan was to get an apartment, start over, and everything's good, and then I met her. Now, things with her seemed good at first. She was the polar opposite of my ex. She's quiet, yet nice, she had her life together, she was wild in the bedroom. I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Anywho, I fall for her hard. We have a whirlwind romance, we move in shortly, and we have this glamorous life where we both make good money. She was a corporate accountant, and I had a decent small business, and we're pulling in $150,000 combined. We were renting a luxury apartment with one car paid, and the other car was a brand new Mercedes. We both had no kids. So things are great, except for the fact that we drink too much together. We get drunk one night in Vegas and decide to get married on the Strip after 6 months of dating and 9 months of knowing each other. The ink is barely dry on my divorce papers from version 1, but no matter, I'm in love. Our lives are wonderful, and one day, a switch flips. So just as the housing bubble bursts and the economy tanks, she loses a couple of jobs due to her inability to show up on Mondays, and I start losing clients. Things start to get pinched, and then she starts complaining because now we can't spend the way we used to. The quarterly vacations dry up, plus we're cooking at home instead of going out to eat 4 times a week. Realizing that we're up against our normal bills plus our debt, I go out to get a job bartending at a posh resort. The only other real skill I have at the time that's marketable. I get 2 other part-time jobs to help make ends meet. She still complains and throws me an ultimatum before I even start getting paychecks, laying the blame at my feet. So I say fine, screw this then. Had we stuck it out a few more months, things would have started to turn a financial corner. Instead, she goes full two-faced. The first night we fight, she attempts to take her life by scratching her wrist with a Leatherman, and then she calls 911, gets admitted to the hospital, and I arrive and have the security guard toss me out because she doesn't want to talk to me. Now obviously, this was just a ploy for attention. We basically fight for the next week. I give her everything she wants, which includes me having to leave the house, signing over my new truck to her, and was only allowed to take things that I bought, basically enough to fill a small storage space. I go away for a few months. I financially struggle, don't get the job I was gonna get, and being broke and realizing that nothing I try is working, I come back to town and live with my dad for a month. At this point, my business has dropped from $7,000 to $8,000 a month at its height to around $500 a month. I bike everywhere I can because I can't afford a car, and my credit is toast, partially due to her love of spending on plastic, so I'm facing bankruptcy. I'm 31 years old, and this is really humbling. But whatever, I'm alive, and I've dealt with hardship before. This will not last forever. As for her, she's kept her house, declared personal bankruptcy on her debts, kept her car, and has been dating a series of men starting a week after we split. While I never asked the details, apparently she's also reached out to a few of my friends and badmouthed me a bit. This would be mildly annoying, but add in 2 factors. She's dragging her feet on the divorce due to not having any money to file, and she keeps up contact on the pretense of us needing to talk, but plays emotional head games during the whole sequence. She would say stuff like, "Hey, I've realized that I still love you. That's why you can make me cry so easily." And other dumb Hallmark movie lines like this. Also, we live in a suburb that's smaller and tightly knit, so multiple places I go, like my church or the bookstore and the coffee shop right by my place, she talks endless trash to people. She says I was a cheater and I used to beat her black and blue, which was never true. She tells everybody I'm stalking her, and I supposedly stole tens of thousands of dollars from her, the whole 9. Some people actually believe her. Finally, after some more back and forth, she leaves town. My dumb, trusting heart hurts, but I'm mostly relieved to see the last of her, realizing she's only nice to me when she wants something. She goes to New York to shack up with another guy, and she gets pregnant 15 minutes later. Finally, she sends me divorce paperwork. I sign it and send it back quickly. All notarized documents, everything organized and flagged. She then attempts to be friends, and I want no part of this BS. She then gets upset. So 1 week after the divorce is finalized, the kid is born. There's no word from her after that for 2 whole years. Thank God. So fast forward, I get a new career, start advancing in it, and start dating a new woman that I'm still with 10 years later. Weirdly enough, they do know each other, and she doesn't like her. So fast forward another 2 years. I get a call from my current girlfriend. So she's just talked to a friend who was a very brief roomie of my ex after our split. I find out that my ex is breaking up with a baby daddy. And there's a custody fight. She tells me he's saying that he doesn't know if the child is his, and will I help her? Well, that's the right thing to do. So even though I don't trust her or particularly like her, I say yes. I get the call, and it's a sob story. Most of it doesn't add up. She tells me that he took the kid, but thinks it's actually mine, and to prove that it's not my kid, I'd need to come to New York and take one of the tests at their facilities. She also told me how he hit her, he put a GPS tracker on her car, brother's a Russian mobster who threatens her. It all sounds very far-fetched. So needless to say, even without this fanciful tale, I generally assume that if this woman's talking, it's a lie. So I'm suspicious. Her lawyer then calls me and seems like a clueless schmuck. I get a letter from him that says verbatim, I, Mark fake name, am the ex-husband of Jane fake name, and was married to her from so-and-so dates to so-and-so dates. I have no legal interest in this child. It sounded super shady. So not wanting to end up in a situation where I've allowed myself to be legally screwed, I make my own lawyer consultation appointment. And before I can even go, the baby daddy finds me on Facebook and sends me a message. Between calls with him, his lawyer, and the impartial lawyer in New York for the child's welfare, I get a very different story. The dad knows the kid is his, as he's had a test done at birth because she's been promiscuous before they got together, and she was pregnant so quickly that he was concerned. They broke up because she was drinking too much, and he caught her with a bottle of vodka as she was driving with their kid in the car. She then stood up in court, claimed that I was actually the father, and she had no idea where to find me. Also, the other BS was just that. He's an IT guy for a university, and his brother works for a carpet cleaning chain. Plus, just like in our relationship, he never hit her or stalked her, etc. So she, not knowing what I know now, starts sending me text messages. I tell her I filled it out and it's on the way back to your lawyer, as I toss it in the trash. I'm so tempted to send her some poetic message about how the truth is coming back to haunt her, but I resist, because I'm not doing this for her, but rather for the sake of their son and the father. So let's keep my ego out of it. I provide legal statements to all in the court. I tell them I know the baby is not possibly mine because I had not been with her since April 15th of 2008. The kid's birthday is in September 2009. I prove that when she was in New York, which is the likely dates of conception, that I was thousands of miles away on the West Coast. I tell them to look through her social media, where she meticulously tagged herself and took tons of pictures of even their mundane locations. I then provide a blood sample to a local lab. I tell them salacious details about her drinking and occasional drug use, including her abused prescriptions, and a previous hospitalization where she was held for a psych eval due to taking way too many pills. So court comes and she gets blindsided. The stack of depositions and a collection of statements from me were what sealed the deal apparently, and the incredibly stupid game she was running is fully exposed. She gets no custody, she gets no child support, she only gets supervised visitation once a week. I run into her ex-roomie, who's upset, but instead of giving her attitude, I just calmly tell her the scam that she was running. She's flabbergasted, but also a horrible gossip, so it gets around town like wildfire. Now, I'm years past the stage of having any curiosity to check her social media, but every few months, she pops up as a suggested friend. And I notice the number of mutual friends plummets from triple digits to eventually 3. The baby's father sends me a massive Amex gift card for Christmas, as much as I make in a week at the time. I call him and tell him that I don't know if I can accept it. I don't want him or anyone to think that I did this for a reward. He virtually begs, saying, "You helped save my family. There's nothing in comparison. Thank you." We break down crying on the phone and eventually form an odd, distant friendship. I even had dinner with him a couple of times when I had to go to New York for business over the years, and I always buy because the poor guy has done enough and has gone through enough because he has to co-parent with this train wreck. To this day, apparently she's struggling to stay sober and has minimal involvement in her child's life due to her inability to show up when expected. Baby daddy tells me that she's been in legal trouble, has financial issues like crazy, and a string of boyfriends that never last more than a few months. As for me, I'm doing well. I got married again 3 years ago, and I'm financially successful, and I rather like my life. Granted, a large part of the story is just karma in action, but I feel like I did the right thing. It wasn't petty, and what I did do hit her where it hurts. Guys, you know what they say though, the best revenge is just living well. And in OP's case, he got married, lives a great life, and made a new long-distance buddy. I absolutely love it. Now my friends, this next story I have to throw out a little disclaimer for. So the story that I'm about to read is a little bit on the darker side. It has to do with OP getting some insane revenge on her abuser. Now the story does not include any graphic details or anything like that, but I do like to give these warnings before I read these stories, just in case it can be triggering to anyone. So if this is not for you, might I suggest clicking this video, where Karen gets upset that OP puts up an electric fence to keep her thieving sons off of his property. And if you're still with me, we're about to dive in. So, when I was a young girl, I was abused by a man who volunteered at the school. It went on for the entire year, and the next year, I had good fortune to change schools for totally unrelated reasons. So, due to the standard issue threats and manipulation that comes with these scenarios, I never told anyone. I pushed it down and just tried not to think about it. So many years later, I had a friend confide in me that something similar happened to her, and we swapped stories. She had done things the proper, tidy way. She told an adult, the guy was tried in a court of law, he was convicted, and he was jailed for a very long time. Everything wrapped up nice and neat with a little bow on top. My friend was pissed at me for not telling anyone about what happened to me, even if it hadn't been until years later. But I pointed out that once it was past the statute of limitations, I couldn't really tell anyone. Doing so when he wasn't tried and convicted would come back on me as slander, so I felt there was nothing I could do. For a while, I just left it at that, but it started to nag at me. Was there really nothing I could do? I started to look him up online. A basic social media search was all I needed to find him. On his very public profile, I got some news that rattled me. He had terminal cancer. Now, it didn't seem like he was going to drop dead the next day, but still, it was now or never if I wanted to get some kind of closure from him. So I sent him a friend request on social media, and he accepted. I sent him the first message saying, "Hey, I'm OP from this school, do you remember me?" He answered yes, and that was it. I then asked for his phone number. I told him that I just want to talk to you. He said he didn't think that was a good idea, and I told him it's been so long, there's nothing that could happen. I'm not mad, I'm just sad more than anything, and I want to talk. Now that I'm older, I want to understand. So he believed me, and I got his number. I tried calling him immediately, and it went straight to voicemail. He said he would set up a time for us to talk, and I told him, okay, fine, I can be patient. About a week or so later, I called him and he picked up. I barely remember the conversation as I went through a lot of it on adrenaline, shaking like a leaf. The guy sounded sick, old and sick, not intimidating like he used to be, and not scary anymore. He asked me what I wanted and why I was talking to him after so long. I said I just needed to hear from you what you did to me so I know I'm not crazy. Now, the guy said he couldn't do that. I told him that he owed it to me and that it had been so long ago that the statute of limitations was expired. There was nothing that could be done about it. I said I knew he was dying, that it would clear his conscience to talk about it and answer all of my questions. That's a win-win, right? And he still said no. So I told him that was a shame, that I'd hoped to get closure from him, but I guess asking his wife and son that I'd seen on social media would be enough. That was a bluff on my part. I knew that by telling him that he could do preemptive damage control. If that didn't work, I'd be out of luck. He said fine. He first said it in a very bland sort of way. He said, I was inappropriate with you back then. Now that wasn't good enough. I pushed and pushed and pushed until I almost thought he was going to hang up, and he finally admits it in detail. I thanked him and asked if his conscience felt better, and he said yes. I said good, and that's what I wanted for the both of us, and I hung up. So now to the actual revenge part. I had recorded the whole thing, which was not illegal. We lived in a one-party consent state. I then uploaded it and sent a link to his wife and his adult son. I explained that I had found them as a mutual contact on social media, and since he was nearing the end, that I thought that they'd appreciate knowing some of the memories he'd shared with me about the time he volunteered at the school. Now, I never got a reply from his wife, and I didn't expect one, but still, I was a little disappointed. It took about 3 months, but I finally got a message from his son. It was glorious. He wasn't the guy's real son, he was his stepson, and he never liked the guy from day one. He tells me that he knew his mom hadn't replied to me, but she listened to it. Afterward, she left him while he was dying of cancer. The stepson said the guy didn't have family of his own, and said that he and his mom were the only people he had left, and they severed ties with him. The best part is, the wife never actually married him, and even if she did, when she left him, it wasn't exactly like there was time for the guy to contest anything in court. He was fading fast, and that stuff can take a year or more to get settled. He didn't have that kind of time. The son told me when she left, she took all the money. She took the closest thing he had to family, and the best part is, without her, he no longer had the money to pay for his private health insurance. A few months later, I got the news. He died alone in a state hospital. Apparently, he had spent the last few months writing constant letters to his now ex and stepson. He tried calling them, tried texting them, he tried everything. Neither one had responded, and he ended up dying alone, knowing that what he had done had eventually ruined his life and taken away what mattered to him. Guys, now that was a revenge that was borderline nuclear. Opie came back and pretty much took away what mattered most in this guy's life, leaving him to live out the rest of his days alone and miserable. But let me know what you guys think. Did you like the way Opie handled that situation and got revenge? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /ProRevenge. Guys, if you enjoyed the stories today, do hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, do hit that subscribe button. And if you missed the last episode of our /ProRevenge, I will link it right here. An owner frames OP to fire him, and he comes back and teaches the shady boss a lesson that he'll never forget. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.